I just received a notification that content of this meeting
Yeah.
is being sent. Okay, that's okay.
Yes, we're going to be live streaming this to our YouTube channel.
Okay.
I just have to get that set up before we get started. Sorry.
No, issue is not decided over.
Isn't the good info books? Insurance.
Barney's the one that will be presenting. Larry Biden's the. You should be on that.
He is, he's on. I just didn't know if he was going to share something. What's this heavy muscle?
Hi, Brian.
Joanna, looks like you have a quorum, but we have about another minute or so
Okay.
before the appointed time.
Do you know whether or not Jeff plans to join us?
I believe he does. I just haven't seen him on the call yet.
Okay. Who's all in the room with you?
Staff.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. This is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Oh, there's Jeff.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Jeff. You're muted.
I am
All right.
muted. Maybe better if the chairman is muted today. How we doing?
Well, we're doing pretty well. Getting a little moisture, I think, across the entire state.
Yeah, a little is right.
Snowing in Boise right now.
Nice.
Okay, you have all of your committee members in attendance as well as a few other board members, and it is the appointed time.
Okay. Welcome everybody to the Finance Committee meeting. This is the first one for 2024. It's meeting number 1-24. It's Thursday, January 11th, 2024. It's 3 p.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. Pacific, and the meeting's being held at the Water Center and on Zoom. The first item on the agenda is introductions and attendance.
Okay, Madam Chair, you have all Finance Committee members present and accounted for. In addition, you also have Pat McMahon and Brian Olmstead from the board on this call as well. And then I will ask Jennifer just to take a list of attendance of staff and guests.
Thank you. The second item on the agenda is the Lost Valley loan request. Do we
Okay,
want to
I'm
hear?
turn that over to Justin Ferguson.
Justin, you have the floor.
Right. Good afternoon. First up, I've got the Lost Valley Reservoir Company's loan applications with the board. And to kind of start off, we're looking at two applications for pre-construction and EIS work that was part of the terms and conditions proposed for the regional water sustainability contract, and then also for a construction loan for the cost of the raise of the dam. To start off, staff we went back and reviewed the two applications. The first one was received back in the summer of 2022. The second one came in December of 23. The first one was for 9.1 million. This one came in at 200,000, but would need revised up to 360,000 based on cash in hand and the estimated project costs and Lost Valley's share of the cost share. Getting into it, both of the applications had some deficiencies. Starting off with a financial assessment. We looked at their annual income. It came out to about 13,500 based on a new application for the sustainability application at 8.5% on a 20-year term. It came out to about $19,000. And with the construction loan, it came out to $750,000 back, and that was with an adjusted interest rate. But the short version there is that based on the 13,500, they wouldn't have sufficient income to cover the loan payment. The second, and kind of the driving issue, we looked at 42-1756 that requires the board to hold a lien for the loan. And the first application proposed using the unsold shares for the additional 20,000 to be stored. The second proposal for the regional water sustainability proposed to use the application for permit. As it stands, the application for permit was protested by the Forest Service and hasn't been yet perfected. So we wouldn't be able to put a lien because we wouldn't be able to divert along with some other things. The last big hangup was that if we were to do the loan, provided they were able to meet those two hurdles, that per 42-1756, we couldn't make the loan out of the revolving development account. It would have to be out of water management because we can't do a study out of the revolving development. The applicants were contacted. We had a meeting yesterday and we kind of talked through some of these. And it's staff's recommendation that we return the applications, and the members of Lost Valley are here to ask the board if they could talk about another way to move this project forward.
Okay. Thank you, Justin. Who
Yeah.
would like to speak in favor of, or speak to this issue for Lost Valley? Is that Mr. Barton?
Yeah, I'm on. Anyway, yeah, I don't think we want to pull our application for the loan for the construction, but we're concerned about trying to put up collateral for this insurance policy that for our EIS and for our grant, to ensure that our grant money is adequate to see us through the EIS and the preliminary engineering program. So anyway, that's not a problem. I don't know where to go here. I guess what I'm, if you aren't able to give us a a line of credit or anything to ensure that we finish that, or the promise of a little more grant money if we fell short, our plan is to go ahead. We will assess the new shareholders, and I think we sent a letter explaining how we raise the money and what the people that have put $200 and some thousand in, and we'll be putting the rest of the balance in, and we figure that'll happen by May or June, that we will call for the other half of that money. So we'll have all our matching funds in place, I'm going to say by May or June. And I don't foresee that we're going to have more than $200,000 worth of expenses between now and then. But anyway, I think Justin needs to, or hopefully you guys have seen the agreement that we put out in front of our new shareholders that were put their at-risk money ahead forth to match your funds, and so I think that answers how we're going to pay it and when, if I'm not mistaken.
So it is your feeling that you will have your share of the match by May or June of this year. Is that correct?
That's our plan, yes.
Okay. Committee members, are there any questions for Mr. Barton at this time? Okay, why don't we?
Well, I'm sorry, I was on mute again, Joanne. So I just want to clarify that Lost Valley Reservoir is telling us today that their preference, in lieu of having the matching money available today, is to wait until May or June when they believe they will have the matching money available, and then we would provide the grant monies to start working on the EIS at that time.
There is one concern with that, and it would be something to address, is whether or not we can entertain invoices that Lost Valley's already incurred towards the EIS prior to signing the contract.
Well, no, I don't think we can. I think we had this conversation at the last finance committee meeting or board meeting. I can't remember which. So that's what I need clarified. Is Lost Valley fine not getting any of the grant money until they have shown a full amount of the 50-50 match, which will occur in May or June, if I understand correctly?
Where we're at on this is, if you're unable to do it in two parts, then that's our next choice. If you aren't willing to give us half and then the other half, then yes, and then our answer is, rather than trying to do a loan or anything, we will come through with our part of the agreement and we will plan on raising that money by May or June, which I think we can make that work, considering the fact if you can't make it in a 2-payment plan.
Okay, so you have enough money in this new shareholder D account to fund the EIS with those funds until you get the second tranche of payment from the new shareholders that would then give you the full match to receive the grant.
Yeah, I think so. We haven't had a projection from Sundance or QRS, but I assume that we can make that work if we have to. It's not the preferred way, but where we're doing it on a piece by piece basis as they bill us, we think that rather than having a full bid for the whole project to contend with down the road, we're going to be doing it as we go along, hoping to keep our costs down by doing it on a task basis. So anyway, that's basically where we're at, I believe. I don't know if Irv, my fellow board members on there, if he wants to speak up to any of that, I'd be open.
No, Dale, you did fine. Jeff, it's like Dale said, it's not our preferred way. It's our second choice. But that's just the way it's going to have to be, I guess. If we can't do it in two, then we will go ahead and go as far as we can. Thank goodness we're in winter so that they can't get up there and incur a lot of cost up there. And then when we get our second batch of money in, then I think we'll be able to match it no problem, minus the bills that we have paid out of the matching funds. I would ask Justin if he could put that letter that was sent to you up so the rest of the board could see that might help answer some questions and let you know where we're at on that. I think that letter answers a lot of the questions that Mr. Raybould might have.
Okay, so the letter states that you now anticipate the pre-construction cost to be 1.120 million, which is what you presented to the finance committee in a previous meeting, and half is 560. What the amounts of $17.50 a share? What is it that we're looking for in this letter?
Well, you're going to see right below that where it says the Class D shares will provide 25% of the pre-construction funds and 25% next year. That's a very key point because that's the second 5 gallons of gas, if you will, reference in a previous conversation. And that's where we're pulling that in. This letter was sent to the 50-some people who have purchased Class D shares, and they have also signed. There is a little agreement at the bottom that they have signed, and they are well aware of where we're at and why we are doing the 1750 now and the 1750 later. As a board, we didn't feel that taking all their money and letting it sit in an account all winter and maybe a year, when they're just farmers, they could use that money, is why we split it into two.
Okay. Why don't we divide this up into two actions if we could? The first one is the loan. Based on staff's recommendation and the evaluation of Idaho code, it doesn't look like we will be able to go forward with the loan. So finance committee members, I would entertain a motion to return the applications back to Lost Valley so that we know that where we're starting with.
Madam
on this
Chairman,
discussion.
excuse me, this is Mark. I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. Is there a
Okay,
second?
I'll second it,
Okay.
Madam Chairman. I would like to discuss it for a minute. I think Lost Valley is telling us they don't want to do the $360,000 EIS loan. So I think it's easy to pull that one back. The other one, if we pull that back, they will lose their standing with regard to their interest rate. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I understand the main reason that loan is not able to be approved at this time is they don't have any method to guarantee repayment of the loan or collateral. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Do the Lost Valley folks think that if we gave them another 30 or 60 days, they could come back with a plan that would provide a tangible collateral and a means of repayment for that loan?
Are you talking about the construction loan?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why not. We've got, once we get past the EIS and then we are started on the construction loan, then we have the dam, our 300 or 400 acres that we own underneath the dam. And then there will be actual water to put up as collateral, but until we start the construction, you know, I don't think there'll be a problem putting the D shares up for collateral.
Well, I don't think that, based on what Justin has reported to us, I don't believe the D shares are going to provide adequate collateral. I think it would have to be the real estate, and it would have to be a lien on the existing water right for the existing 10,000 acre feet, something of that sort. If you are willing to go back to your shareholders, and I would probably have a shareholder meeting and get them all to approve, if they were willing to put all that up for collateral for the construction loan, then I would tend to want to give you a little time to figure out whether you could do that or not and preserve your standing with regard to your interest rate. If you don't think that that's a possible avenue, then it'd be nice to know that now, and we could just go ahead with this motion to pull both loans back.
Is it possible to pull the 360 loan back and leave the other one?
Well, that's kind of what I'm debating with the rest of the committee members right now, is what kind of a recommendation to make to the full board. I don't know what the timeline is. I know other people have asked for extensions on some of their loan applications because of unforeseen circumstances. So I'd probably be a little lenient right now. At least this is just one guy. If you thought you could go back and get that approval from your shareholders to allow that kind of a commitment, a lien on your current facilities and your current water right.
I do know one thing, Mr. Raybould, that we've had with the Middle Valley, even wanting to buy D shares, it required a 66.6% of the shareholder vote in order for them even to purchase more shares. Also required I think we had a minimum of a 10-day. I don't know what the bylaws say for Lost Valley of a notice, but that was it was a monumental task to get that done. We did achieve it with about a 73% vote of the shareholders saying, or 73% of the positive to buy shares, but it was almost like rolling over an elephant to get there. So I think even with the Lost Valley shares, by the time we go out and get that vote, put the notices out and get the shareholders in, and I'm kind of skeptical that we would get there with the shareholders to get to hit the threshold that we would need to leverage the real estate and the dam and the shares of the A, B, and C shares that are existing 10,000 now.
I think a little bit of the catch would be the fact that we're in an unusual situation that the stockholders each hold their own stock certificate for acre feet of water, and we issue those to the individuals instead of to the whole reservoir with stock in there. It works out the same, but there could be a legality there. But I think it's something, Jeff, that we can bring up in our March meeting. We can address it. We can send out a letter ahead of time, and maybe we'll get full participation in our stockholder meeting. And we can, if we know that's what's ahead of us, in order to get a construction loan, then we need to be preparing them for them. But as far as the EIS loan, we don't feel like we need it. If we fall short, we're going to go out and find a way to finish it. We don't have any choice. And so anyway, as long as we know that your matching money is sitting there dedicated to us, we'll figure out our end. And but we would like to proceed with keeping our construction loan in place.
Okay, I'd also like to point out there's a second deficiency that was noted by staff, and that's the cash flow. So in addition to asking your shareholders whether or not they want to put the assets up as collateral, are you willing to increase your assessment in order to make the payments on that construction loan?
We as a board have the power. We set assessments and we set them on a yearly basis with the projection. That's why we don't have show income right now, because we're assessing for some savings plus the operation of the reservoir of the dam, and that's all we're assessing for. And so it doesn't show repayment until we raise the assessment to match our bills that are going to be coming in. So.
Okay. So it sounds to me like you're willing to go back to your members at your next meeting and ask them whether or not they would be interested, knowing that this is coming down the road, potentially a construction loan, asking that they're willing to put their assets, their A, B, and C shares, their dam, as collateral for a construction loan and increase assessments to cover the payments. Is that a correct statement?
And I don't, if we fix this, put in 2 or 3 million into the spillway, we're going to have to do the same thing. We're going to have to put up the water shares for collateral. So anyway, it looks to me like, anyway, unless we find a different banker than you guys. But,
okay.
Don't see that happen.
Excellent. Okay. So Board Member Gibbs, do you want to alter your motion to include to remove only the second pre-construction grant loan?
Madam Chairman, I would amend my motion to do just that at this point in time. We obviously always can go back and return this loan to them at a later date if they don't come through with what we're trying to obtain. So I don't think time is of the essence to return that construction loan.
Okay.
The second agrees with those changes to the original motion.
Okay, so is there any more discussion on the motion in front of us? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so the pre-construction loan is off the table. Now, going back to whether or not we wait until you have the money, Irv did say something that caused me a little bit of concern, in that your share of the match, whether or not the bills that you paid prior to today could be considered part of your share of the match. And is Justin still available?
I am.
And what did you mention something at the beginning of this about that? What, can you restate that?
Just, it was a question as to whether invoices incurred towards the EIS that Lost Valley has can be taken into account before the contract is signed, but after the date of resolution.
And can they?
And I guess the question being, could we pay on invoices that they have right now before the contract is done?
Well, Joanne, this is Jeff. I don't think we're not going to issue any of the grant funds until they show they have the match. If their current invoices are part of the 1,120,000 or whatever the number is, estimated cost of the EIS, then they can hold those and provide those as a portion of their match if they're paid.
So long as that they are dated after the date of the resolution when we approve the match, correct? I guess it's.
What date would that be?
I don't think we're going to approve the match until they have the matching money. So I guess if we need to take some kind of board action acknowledging that the plan for this particular grant is for them to continue to collect their money on their assessment to get the matching money. And once that's completed, then we will issue our grant to them. And along the way, should they expend some of those funds on the EIS and provide documentation that that money went towards this EIS and not other activities that the grant is outlined to cover, then I would say we should be able to do that.
That is the way that we understood it. And let me, if it helps clarify things, all the money that we have taken in for the sale, the 1750 goes into a separate account that is just geared just for this EIS and for the raising of the dam. So those funds that we have not been commingled with any other funds. It would be a very clean transaction. The reason that we've started is, one, when we were granted the grant, we figured, well, we got to get going because this thing's been kicked down the road for so many years. We got to get rolling. And we know it's going to take at least a couple of years. So we started putting the calls out for cash and for the sales of the shares, and we started rolling. Now, as these bills come in, I only know of a couple bills that have come in, and they haven't been huge. I want to say there may be $5,000 worth of bills in so far from QRS, but I know there's going to be some more incurred, and it'll be a very clean transaction. That the money that we've taken in on the D shares out of that account is the money going to pay those bills strictly 100% towards the EIS. So to answer Mr. Raybould's question, it is a very clean, separate transaction, and that's the way we understood it to be, that they would be allowed as part of our matching funds, because that's where the money's coming from, is from our matching fund money.
Okay, I just want to make sure we're all clear on that.
Madam Chairman, I wonder if the best thing we could do is make a recommendation to the full board to resolve through resolution that we acknowledge what the process is going to be from now until June or whenever these guys tell us they want the date to be. And the process will be that they will proceed with the EIS, expending their own dollars from the fund that they've raised, and that those expenditures will be counted towards their 50% match, but we will not supply any of the grant money until they have demonstrated they have their match fully in place.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second, this is Dean.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, is there any more discussion? And before we vote, Mr. Barton, are you comfortable with that, how that's going to work?
Yeah, I think we'll make it work.
Okay, so let's vote.
Madam Chair, this
Yes.
is Al Barker.
Yes.
Not being a member of the committee, I just want to say that I think Mr. Raybould's proposal makes a lot of sense and should be supported by the board. Should the committee choose to follow through on that recommendation.
Thank you for that. Is there any other comments from other members other board members not part of the committee? All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, one opposed.
No, this is Dean. I just late getting my mute off.
Okay. Okay.
I'm good. I'm good with it.
Everybody's good with it. Well, good. I think this definitely shows a path forward and puts us all on the same page. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So we're ready to move on to the next item.
Yes, Madam Chair, ready to move on to the aging infrastructure grants round 4 recommendations. I'm going to turn the floor over to Neely Miller to discuss this item.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee and board. Just a little background here on the aging infrastructure. As you can see, today we'll be talking about round 4. You have done 3 previous rounds, and each one of those rounds The first one being in September of 22, you awarded 12.5 million. In round 2 of January 2023, you awarded another 12.5 million. And then round 3 was awarded this past November 2023. And in that round, you awarded a little over $11 million. And the plan is, or the schedule is to announce awards at the January board meeting next week. For this round 4, the board received 19 applications requesting about $7.7 million in funding. Staff has ranked and scored these applications per the criteria adopted by the board. I just wanted to reiterate, some of the high level components of that criteria. First being that the board defines an aging water infrastructure project as any new project or new phase of an improvement project intended to repair, maintain, replace, or improve existing infrastructure that supports irrigation water delivery, storage, drainage, treatment, and use of water for irrigation. And it does say there that it does not include municipal drinking or wastewater systems. The grant award limit is $2 million, and the board has indicated they want to see a 1/3 match. The board that the grant can't exceed 1/3 of the total project costs. And then the board has imposed a threshold of 50% of that the total budget may be spent within a single district, but if there are competing demands, you can waive those. So moving on to the ranking based upon that criteria, staff has put that into a spreadsheet, and I'll briefly walk through this. Yeah. Is that readable for folks?
I can see it.
Okay. See a number of columns here. That column 1, 2, 3, 4 is the score column. That's the order these applications are listed in. You can see that the highest ranked application was from Black Canyon Irrigation District with a score of 92 out of 100. Moving down, you can see the ranking 1 through 19 of those projects that were submitted. The scores ranked from 92 down to that last one being a 23. All the other scores were 60 or above. I would say that last one, Squaw Creek Ditch Company, was a canal modernization study. It was really a study to look at what they needed to do to improve their canal. Based upon the board's previous guidance and the criteria, staff determined that one to be ineligible. Staff is recommending funding for the others. And you can see the recommended award listed in the award column. And then briefly, as I mentioned, there was that criteria the board had set where no more than 50% of the budgeted funds could go to one district. Here you can see that of the percentage of the budget, 11% is requested for District 1, almost 5% in District 2, 8.6% in District 3, and then 37.1% in District 4. And that would leave a remaining of about $4.8 million that would not be expended under this budget if you awarded the awards based on the staff recommendation. And with that, I would stand for any questions. I guess I would also say that, as you can see, most of these are measurement modernization, canal lining, conversion to pipeline. I'd say that summarizes the bulk of these. There are a few different ones like a headgate replacement, but that seems to be the flavor of these types of projects. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Madam Chair, this is Jeff. I just thought of something looking at these numbers. We have the policy that no more than 50% be awarded in any one district. Is that 50% of the total grant applications or 50% of the 12,500,000? And if so, it looks like District 4, we would have to recommend an authorization for more than 50% to go to one district in this package.
Madam Chair, Mr. Raybould, the criteria says 50% of the budget.
Oh, okay. All right, then we're good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Would anything from the board members who are not part of the committee, do you have any comments? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a recommendation to the full board to approve these aging infrastructure grants for round number 4.
Madam Chair, this is Dale. I so move.
Thank you, Dale. Is there a second?
I'll second it. This is Mark.
Thank you, Mark. Any more comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Madam Chair, this is Jeff. I just need to acknowledge that I'm directly attached to a couple of these projects, and will further make that known when the board votes on it, but just wanted that for the record.
Madam Chairman, I also may be attached to item number 7 there, if that's the Last Chance Canal, well, I think it's the Last Chance Canal.
Last Chance Canal Company.
Yes, I am a shareholder in that canal company. But one of 164.
Madam Chairman, I think I just kind of going beyond it. Make a recommendation, I don't think it's a problem, but just so that we all let the other board members know when we vote, or whether we should vote or not, when we actually do approve the grants. That's the important thing at the board meeting.
Okay. Is there any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Is it possible at the full board meeting that we can maybe pull those out of the list? I don't know how to do that. Is there a way we can handle those? Should we handle those? Is there a way we should handle those in the full board meeting so that people can specify their conflict without pulling their vote on the rest of the item?
Yeah, Madam Chair, we've got a process that has worked in the past. Particularly, Mr. Barker's firm, has represented a number of these. So he generally votes in the affirmative, but abstains on those which his firm is involved.
Okay.
So I think that would work for Jeff and Mark as well, and any others that have that same conflict.
Excellent.
I was going to make the same comment, Madam Chair. I think that's easier.
Okay. All right, thank you. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda.
Okay, next one, we'll be taking up the topic of proposed terms and conditions for a couple of regional water sustainability projects, particularly the city of Gooding and the American Falls spillway. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Neely, and he may further turn the floor over to a couple of other staff that have been working directly on this.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, members of the Canadian Board. I just would highlight here at the end of this agenda item, you'll be asked to make a recommendation to the board for next week for the appropriate terms and conditions for the 2 projects we're going to talk about today. And I will introduce this topic, and then I'll hand it off to both Cynthia Bridge-Clark and Amy Castle to briefly talk about these. As you'll recall at the back, just a little bit of background, at the July 2023 meeting in Moscow, the board approved 9 regional water sustainability projects for a total of about $60 million. We're going to talk about 2 of those today, the American Falls Spillway Rehab, where $12.5 million were approved, and then the Gooding Flood Control Project, which was a $4 million approval. The board directed staff to work with project sponsors to develop those appropriate contract terms and conditions and bring back to the board for approval. And again, we'll talk about these 2. And the first one is American Falls Spillway Rehab. I'll just hand this over to Cynthia to talk about this, and then we'll move into the Gooding project. I believe, though, these are listed in the reverse order on the agenda. Madam Chair, would you like, is it okay to address the American Falls Spillway first, or would you like to do the city of Gooding?
I'm fine with American Falls.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members.
I think you all are fairly familiar with this project at this point, but it involves a series of repairs to the American Falls Dam, including a spillway repair and some other activities, trunnion pin replacement, guard gate frame and inspection repair, and dam intakes replacement. The spillway repair, I'll just call it that for simplicity, was completed between 2015 and 2023, but the other pieces of the project are scheduled to be completed between 2023 and 2032. So the board, as Neely mentioned, approved a number of projects, and in this case, it approved the use of American Rescue Plan Act funding, ARPA funding, to fund the project's partners or sponsors portion of the estimated project costs. And those total $12 million and $12.5 million roughly. So ARPA funds, just to refresh everyone's memory, can be used for the purposes of satisfying any non-federal matching requirement for an authorized Bureau of Reclamation project. And this project meets that condition. In addition, federal ARPA funding guidance requires that funds must be expended by December 31, 2026. So this will require that the board disperse all of the funds by the end of 2026. So we have continued to coordinate since our last conversation with the project sponsors and Reclamation to develop a draft contract. And you do have a copy of that contract in your materials today. I'll go ahead and just touch on, and I think Neely's got most of those conditions shown here, but it's also in your board materials. And I'll also note that we have a number of the representatives from the project sponsors joining us today. Travis Thompson, Cresta Davis, and Scott Pugred are here to answer any questions that you might have about the contract or the project specifically. And Megan Carter is also available. She did much of the drafting on behalf of the board related to this contract. So just to reiterate some of the basic terms of the contract, it will be between the board, Idaho Power Company, and American Falls Reservoir District. The funding will be dispersed in 4 installments, with the final installment being paid before December 31st, 2026 to comply with ARPA spending guidelines. And the first installment will recover and be reimbursement for the work that's already been completed on the spillway repair. So that is $3.5 million, and that is specified in the draft agreement or draft contract. The other 3 installments are broken out based in general on the cost of work that's anticipated in roughly 3-year increments throughout the life of the project. And again, that's defined in the contract. The contract provisions also account for invoicing the board and reporting on work and expenses through project completion. The contract term will run the life of the project through all of the funding, though all of the funding will be dispersed by the end of 2026. But again, the contract term will run throughout the term of construction and completion, and reporting requirements will also continue through the life of the contract. So project sponsors will provide annual reports detailing project expenditures and work completed. Again, the board agrees to pay up to roughly $12.4 million to be applied to the completion of the project as it's been defined. And the project sponsors will agree to comply with standard board contract terms as well as the ARPA related terms. And if the project is either not completed or is completed for less money, then that will be reimbursed first to the board. And it's our understanding that that money will be returned to the federal government. Our staff will, if that's a necessity, will work through that process. So with that, I'll either turn it over to the board and committee members. If you have any questions for the project sponsors or Megan Carter, I'm sure they're willing to address those at this time.
All right, thank you, Cynthia. Committee members, does anyone have any questions for the project sponsors or for Cynthia?
I think I'm good, Joanne.
Okay. I'm not seeing anything from anybody else either. So do we want to make a recommendation to forward these terms and conditions to the full board for approval at the January meeting?
Madam Chairman, this is Mark. I so move.
Thank you, Mark. Is there a second?
I'll,
Thank you. Thank you, Dale. That was a second from Dale, I believe.
yes.
Okay. Hearing no other discussion, all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay. I made the assumption that you've already ran this through Idaho Power Company and American Falls Reservoir District, so they are in agreement with these terms and conditions.
Yes, Madam Chair. They've all been involved even right up to this morning in reviewing the draft contract that you have before you. So yes, it's been a good collective effort, and I think everyone is in agreement. As I understand it, the board will receive a single invoice, and all of the space holders have coordinated as to how they will ensure that invoice is approved and directed to the board collectively through various MOAs and other agreements. So yes, Madam Chair, we are good to go on that front.
Excellent. All right. Some of the state's money at work. I like it. Okay, next project.
Madam Chair, the next project is the Gooding Flood Control Project. Amy Castle with staff will introduce this project and talk through the proposed contract terms and conditions. We also have a person in attendance from the city of Gooding that would be happy to speak on these if asked. All right, Amy.
Amy, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Can anyone hear Amy Castle?
No.
I can't hear her.
Okay.
This is Larry Bybee from the city of Gooding. I can't hear Amy either.
No, I'm gonna try to mute you and then ask you to unmute again. Try that, Amy. That work? No. Maybe check your mic, which mic you're using.
Volume up.
How
about now?
There you are.
Yeah.
Okay. I had to come in through my browser today, so yes, that caused some issues. Anyway, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee and the board. Next project is the City of Gooding Flood Control Project. Just a refresher of this project. The Littlewood River flows through the city of Gooding in a constructed masonry channel known as the Gooding Canal. In the 30s, the river was realigned and the channel was constructed of grouted and ungrouted hard placed lava rock over native lava rock riverbed. Since the 40s, the channel walls have deteriorated significantly, and the rate of deterioration increases as the project ages. So the city of Gooding has been working with United States Army Corps of Engineers for over 20 years to replace the Gooding Canal. They have secured, thanks to efforts by U.S. Congressman Simpson, They have been able to secure the necessary $40 million in funding, which requires a 10% cost share, which is the board's contribution of $4 million. So that's what our contract will be for. The Army Corps of Engineers will obtain all the needed permits, approvals, and certifications. The City of Gooding will obtain any real estate interests needed to complete the project. I do have in this memo a list of the proposed terms and conditions. These are quite similar to other terms and conditions you saw at the last board meeting. The one exception, this is an invoice reimbursement not to exceed contract. So the City of Gooding will actually receive an invoice from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and we will reimburse that invoice. Additional terms and conditions, sponsors shall submit documentation demonstrating cost share has been secured. That will come through a project partnership agreement between the city and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Similar to other projects, there will be a 10% holdback on funds until project is completed. And then there'll be the monthly reporting requirements similar to other projects, and a financial summary of the project's total costs. Larry Bybee with the City of Gooding is here on the phone call, on the Zoom call, if there's any specific questions. But that is, we do not have a draft contract yet. These are just the proposed terms and conditions before you today. So with that, Madam Chair, do you or any of the members have any questions?
Mr. Bybee, are you amenable to these terms and conditions, or is the City of Gooding amenable to them?
We are, yes. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, and members of the committee. Our attorney has reviewed it. Our counsel has reviewed it. We're very appreciative. An update to the project is that we are scheduled to have an official signing ceremony on February 1st to get the project started, with actual construction potentially beginning in November or December of 24. All thanks to your board and your generous support of our project.
Thank you for that. Any other comments or questions from committee members? All right, then I would entertain a motion for a recommendation to the full board to accept these terms and conditions.
Madam Chair, this is Dean, I'd make that motion.
Thank you, Dean.
This
Is there
is Dale.
a second? I'll second it. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, thank you. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Mr. Bybee, for that.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Yeah. Okay, we're ready to move on to the next agenda item.
Yes, Madam Chair. Next item is request to be added to the Regional Water Sustainability Projects list. Again, I'm going to turn this over to Neely to walk through a couple of requests that have been received.
Thank you, Mr. Patton, and thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the committee and board. Again, at the end of this brief presentation, you'll be asked to consider requests to be added to the Regional Water Sustainability Priority List. Just a little bit of background, as you'll recall, back in 2021, the board adopted an initial Regional Water Sustainability Priority List to help guide the board's spending for large regional water sustainability projects. The board also adopted in 2022 threshold criteria indicating that the projects must help achieve water sustainability on a regional, basin-wide, or statewide basis. And then further, the board has developed criteria for inclusion of projects on that list. The criteria included a process for how to be added and consideration for inclusion and a process for removing projects from the list. The board set an annual deadline of December 1 for requests to be submitted. On December 1, 2022, the board received 15 requests to remain on or be added to the list, and the board did update that list in January of 2023. At the July 2023 board meeting in Moscow, the board approved funding for projects, for regional water sustainability projects in the total, an amount of about $60 million for 9 projects, and funded with a portion of ARPA funds and state surplus funds allocated to the board's water management account by Governor Little as part of his leading Idaho initiative and the Idaho legislature. So this year, on December 1st, 2023, the board received 2 requests to be added to the list. The first request was a project from the city of Nampa, and it was a drain, recharge, and flood storage planning study. And you can see here that what they're proposing to do is to evaluate drain flows in the Treasure Valley and identify locations for water storage to improve drain flows, capture and mitigate flood water, and improve water management in the area. And the request is for funding up to $200,000, the total cost of the project. The second request that was submitted to be added to the priority list was from the city of Twin Falls, and this project is the Harrison Water Storage Tank, Pump, and Canyon Springs Pump Station. And just briefly, this is the construction of a water storage tank and associated pump replacements for use at the city's key location on Harrison Street. And this request is for funding in the amount of about $37 million, which is the total cost of the project. And with that, I would stand for any questions or comments from the board. I believe Madam Chair had talked about potentially inviting these entities in to make presentations on these projects at a future finance committee.
Yes, that's how we did the initial list. All of the projects that are on that list gave a presentation to a finance committee meeting, in which luckily most of the entire board attended, so we could all be educated on the projects. That would be my preference, is to schedule a future finance committee meeting where, once again, these 2 presenters could present their projects to the entire finance committee meeting and hopefully the whole board. Is there any other discussion about that?
Madam Chair, this is Dean. I would agree with you on that.
Okay. Thank you, Dean.
Do I have a
Anyone
motion?
else? Yeah, is that a motion, Dean? But actually, I don't know that we need a motion. Can we invite them to schedule a future finance committee meeting for them to present their projects?
Yeah, I think if that's your direction as chair of the finance committee, I think you have the prerogative to do that.
Okay, then let's do that. And we'll go from there.
That sounds great, Madam Chair. We will coordinate that and then schedule that for a future date.
Okay, is there any other discussion about that process with any of the other committee members or board members on this call? Okay, I'm not hearing any, so we will go forward with scheduling a future finance committee meeting where they can present their projects. Okay, so I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item.
Yeah, this is the Lewis and Orchards Exchange project. And again, I'm going to turn the floor over to Neely to introduce this topic.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Good afternoon again, Madam Chair, members of the board and the committee. Again, you'll at the end of this brief agenda item, or this agenda item, you'll be asked to consider a request for funding from the Lewis and Orchards Irrigation District. Just a little bit of background in terms of the process with the regional water sustainability projects request. In July 2021, the board adopted that initial list, and that initial list did include a reference to the Lloyd project. On November 28, 2022, Lloyd submitted a request to the board to remain on the priority list. The board chose to keep the Lloyd project on the list, and then on December 4th, 2023, last month, Lloyd submitted a request for funding to move forward with the replacement irrigation water supply, and they're requesting $1,287,000 in funding to move the engineering and design forward to the 30% level. Staff from Lloyd are in attendance today at the Finance Committee. I believe Barney Metz is in attendance, and perhaps someone from the tribe as well that will speak to this. And I've also attached the funding request letter. It's in the materials that was submitted to the board on December 4th, 2023. And with that, I would hand it over to Mr. Metz to make his presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Neely, Madam Chair, and committee members. We appreciate you taking the time today to listen to our next step as we move this process forward. I think. Can you see a PowerPoint on the screen for you?
Yes,
Yes.
you can.
Okay, wonderful. So we appreciate you taking the time. We'll try to be efficient with it, and we don't want to go too in depth. And we do appreciate the support and the level of following that you've had to our project over the years. As you know, this has been a complicated process with multiple partners across our region, trying to seek resolution to multiple processes of it. And with me today, I have Bobby Hills from the Nez Perce Tribe. He's the project manager for the Nez Perce Tribe on this project. And this involves Lloyd, the Bureau of Reclamation. We are owned by them, and we operate and manage it for them. Our project takes waters that originate and pass through the Nez Perce Tribe's reservation. And we have regional partners in the county of Nez Perce County, the city of Lewiston, and the Lewis-Clark Valley Chamber of Commerce, along with our entire congressional delegation has been involved and followed and tracked and is supportive of this, along with formal letters of support from former Governor Otter, University of Idaho Waters of the West Program, NOAA Fisheries, the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission, and we have environmental partners that support this effort as well. Probably the one that stands out the most in our partnership is Trout Unlimited. And realistically, as an irrigation district, we have always struggled to deliver enough irrigation water to meet our contractual things, and there's been litigation that you all know about, but we've stood on three primary objectives in our resolution of these problems, and that is, one is to get a better water supply for LOID, the full contracted water amount, improve our water quality and reliability. We also want to stop the adverse effects that we've had to the Nez Perce Tribe and its people, both from a cultural and a natural resource standpoint. And then, quite frankly, we were dewatering strings, which is not good for ESA listed Snake River A-run steelhead. Fish struggle when there's no water in the streams, and those continue to be our objectives that we're working towards resolution on. On this picture here, and you guys get to be the guinea pigs of my new mega cursor, which helps make this explain things better. But this line here is the same as this line. And as you can see, all these colored parcels are tribal parcels that are affected by our project. And so there is some pretty significant detriment of our project being located on and passing through the Nez Perce Reservation. And these are effects here of the streams that we're involved in. And as you can see, they're dried out when we totally divert the water supply that used to run through them. And again, it's really tough for ESA listed species to, if you're a fish and you don't have water in the stream, it's a tough deal to have. In relation to our water supply issues that we have, we service about 22,000 patrons in a service territory of 3,800 acre feet. We're pretty highly urbanized. Lloyd has never been able to deliver the 2.2 acre feet of water that were contracted with reclamation due to an inadequate surface water supply. The water's just never been there. Once minimum flows were established through our various biops for the fish that affected both Sweetwater and Webb Creeks, that just cut our supply even further, which makes it even more difficult to be able to deliver that water quantity to our patrons. Since 2000, we've been on numerous times, we've been on restrictions, but for decades, we have really had irrigation restrictions within our district to try to deal with the lack of supply. The mountain to the south of the Lewiston Orchards is Craig Mountain. It's a low elevation mountain. It tops out at about 5,000 feet, so it doesn't get as much snow as the higher elevation peaks in eastern Idaho and in central Idaho. And so we've kind of always dealt with a limited elevation surface area in the ability to have snow events. So we've always had a mix of rain and snow events, but as we go through climate change, we're really starting to experience more rain events than we are snow events. And this year has been fantastic as an example in the fact that there are portions of the state that have had some snow, but on our mountain so far is all we've had is rain up until the last few days. So as part of this climate change effort, the water tends to come off the mountain sooner. And by the biological opinion, we can only start collecting waters on February 1st. So we miss some of the runoff that occurs in December and January, which again, just deteriorates the supply that we're able to apply to our patrons. So we went through the NEPA process with the Bureau of Reclamation and Nez Perce Tribe, came up with our alternatives to surface water diversion systems or a groundwater well field solution. And we drilled the first pilot well, we drilled the second well, and then 2021, the year of the drought, came along. And as we're trying to pump those two wells to supplement our irrigation supply, we ended up placing one of Lloyd's domestic wells in jeopardy, which actually has a senior water right. So in theory, Lloyd could have done a water call upon ourselves to say, shut down your irrigation solution because you have a senior water right trying to get water. And then through our efforts of studying the aquifer and Idaho Department of Water Resources staff out of the northern region, we're starting to see some declines within that aquifer of up to 6 feet a year. And so we're definitely seeing that the groundwater solution is not a viable long-term solution, and that's with it only being halfway built out. So key points moving forward, the Bureau of Reclamation and Nez Perce Tribe Lloyd and our partners here in the community are working together to fund this alternative solution. The Bureau of Reclamation in the federal side of the house, we hope will carry a very large brunt of this across the finish line as a groundwater solution. We're already having difficulties. We're already not being able to use it as a source. And if you have the removal of Lower Granite Dam, that's going to further drop the operating levels of the regional aquifer and just complicate matters further. And then quite frankly, with the climate change, the water, we don't get as much snow. The water's coming off sooner when we can't collect it. And at this point, it's probably best left in stream as a cold water refugia for those endangered species. So this is where I'm hoping Mega Cursor comes in to help us today as a general concept. Here's the Lewiston Orchards, and then it extends off to the left of your screen. The city of Lewiston would be down in this direction to orientate you. This is the Clearwater River here. And then Mans Lake, our lowest point storage, is here. So the proposed pipeline path would roughly come out of the river, climb up over through the bluffs, get up into the county road system, and follow that county road system out, and then it would be discharged into Mans Lake, or as the Bureau of Reclamation has it labeled as Reservoir A. So we were asked by Idaho Water Resource Board and Department of Water Resources, we were asked by the Bureau of Reclamation that we needed to ascertain a more firm number. I appreciate everybody's support of this project, but for whatever reason, no one wanted to support the back of the napkin number that I had come up with, and we needed something that was further engineered out, something that had some standing on it. And so the Lloyd and the Nez Perce Tribe, along with some environmental friends, pooled some money together to do a 10% evaluation of this project and a 10% design to start saying, you know, what does this really look like? Where do things kind of start to go? What the funding that we're looking for is to move this to build on that 10% design and move it to a 30% design, which helps to reduce the uncertainties that exist out there and help us firm up the number to work towards for this final solution. And this is a really great example here. So here's the Clearwater River flowing from the east to the west. In the 10% design, you have 3 different potential locations for the river intake system to be placed on the Clearwater River. And then how you would get underneath, working with the Corps of Engineers, and then passing underneath the Camas railroad tracks that you have there to the pump station, and then start getting it up the hill. So we need to start working on those easements. We need to start working on our contracts with the various partners that we have here, and we need to move that design further along so that we have a more firm target to work with our federal partners to continue to move towards resolution, and we have that bid number in hand. Quite frankly, today we're looking at in 2023 dollars is $60 million for the project. We want to fine tune that, and hopefully by reducing some of the risks that would be out there with the uncertainties, we can get that number reduced. But until we take those next steps, we can't. And quite frankly, the largest landowner where this pipeline is going to go across is an elderly gentleman. Him and his wife have come in and they very much support this project. They'd like to see it move forward. And quite frankly, we would like to secure that easement and the rest of the easements that come along with this to move it forward before our willing landowner is no longer with us. The 30% design not only will reduce some of the uncertainties that exist out there, but we're also going to take advantage of the favorable political climate that exists. We have an administration right now that supports this. We have the Department of Interior that is favorable towards this project because it's got resolutions to tribal trust issues. We were able to put wet water downstream with those wells, and that will stay in place until this is completed out. So it'll be good and advantageous for the fish as well. And the amount of money that we're asking for to move this from that 10% design to a 30% design is $1.287 million. Recap of why I think that we are a really good fit for this is first, we're going to achieve water sustainability for North Central Idaho, and it has multiple public benefits, not only from a state side, federal side, special purpose district, city of Lewiston, and the county. But this really encompasses and embraces making things better across a wide range of the North Central Idaho region. We have been collaborative now for over a decade. Once we quit suing each other and we all move forward, understanding that we would make more progress if we worked in lockstep together, and we have the federal government that would like to see resolution to this, along with support from our congressionals, our local politicians and leaders. The Nez Perce tribe is an excellent partner for us on this, our environmental partners, and quite frankly, our Lloyd patrons would like to see some resolution to this as well. And we understand that the state has made a push to declare that they would like to see surface water availability use before groundwater, because all the groundwater systems throughout the state are experiencing more pressures with the growth and demand that's on them. And by using a surface water system, lower in the system will leave the water in stream for fish. It will pull out a lesser amount than LOID is currently diverting from those systems, and it will also help protect the regional aquifer that we have here. And we're already currently under a groundwater management plan, and we would hate to see that situation become worse. So we think that we fit those criteria quite well. And Madam Chair, if there's any questions, we'd be more than happy to stand for those today from the Finance Committee.
Okay. Thank you, Barney and Bobby. I have a conflict of interest, so I won't be participating in the discussion on this, but if any other committee members would have any questions for him, we'd entertain those now.
Madam Chairman, this is Jeff. Just to clarify, my understanding is that Reclamation is very interested in helping fund this project. And it's part of an agreement that was reached between Reclamation and Lloyd and the tribe. Is that correct?
Madam Chair, Chairman Raybould, yes, that is correct. The Bureau of Reclamation already has millions set aside to move towards this. They will continue to do what we've done over the last 10 years now, and that is we scrape from other projects to put together. And quite frankly, in consultation with various peoples back in Washington, D.C., there was quite heavy support to like to see this get done. And Congressman Folker's office has reached out looking at ways to at potential legislation to continue to move this forward. So yes, we think that there will be quite a heavy burden lifted by the federal side of the House on this.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dale?
this is Dale. I move that we grant this request, 1,287,000 to the Lewiston Orchard
It'd be
Thank
irrigation.
recommendation, Dale.
Yeah,
Recommend
it's
to the
recommended
full
to the
board.
full. Yes, thank you.
I would second that.
Okay. There's been a motion to recommend to the full board approval of $1.287 million for a 30% design study for the Lewiston Orchards Irrigation District. It's been seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 And I abstain. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, so then I think we're on to the next agenda item. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Yes, we're on to item number 7, legislative audit. And let's see, Cynthia will lead off. Cynthia and Sasha will discuss this item.
All right. Well, I think our last item on the agenda, again, Madam Chair, committee members, to discuss this with you today. So the department received the accountability report for fiscal years 2020 to 2022, and that was completed by the Legislative Services Office Audits Division. And you have a copy of that report in the committee materials, and we'll talk a bit about that today. So in general, we want to make the committee aware of the finding that was identified in the report as it pertains to board funds. And to summarize, the finding states that significant errors were found in spreadsheets used to monitor the cash balances for the revolving development fund and water management fund and the secondary aquifer planning and management fund. So the spreadsheets referenced are used to track the document, track and document cash balances and funds that are committed to each of those 3 different funds. The financial spreadsheet, it's also used to generate a report that's referenced by the board at bi-monthly meetings. So you all are familiar with that report. That is included in each of your regular meetings in the work materials. And that's used to review revenue, expenditures, and cash or account cash balances when you all are making funding commitments and allocations. Now, the department completes a monthly reconciliation of the cash balances within each fund to determine the overall cash balance of the fund and how much is committed and uncommitted to various projects. And those reconciliations are maintained in an Excel spreadsheet that's updated month to month. Now, during the audit, errors were identified in the revolving development fund and the secondary aquifer planning and management fund. For the revolving development fund, formula errors were found in the spreadsheet, and the ending cash balance did not agree with the balance that is identified in STARS, which is the state's accounting system. For the secondary aquifer planning and management fund, the audit identified problems with representation of some of the expenditures, which resulted in either an overstatement of expenditures for a specific project or an overstatement of the balance funding remaining for a specific project. So in general, the conclusion was that these inaccuracies in the information could lead to the board making commitments without the necessary available cash. The audit recommendation is that effective controls need to be established to ensure that the data is properly entered into the workbooks and that reviews are completed at a level to determine if any errors are present. So I should note that there were no issues identified in the board's water management account or the accounting of the ARPA funds. Now, Fiscal and Planning and Projects Bureau staff have been reviewing the findings of the audit, and we've been taking steps to reconcile the spreadsheet and the cash balances and committed funds. And we're developing an agency corrective action plan. You all have worked with Sasha Marston quite a bit at this point. She's the department's financial officer, and she's with us here today to discuss some of the details of the finding itself and discuss details of the review of the available funds. So Sasha, I'll turn it over to you for some comments.
Don't have to be on camera, right?
No.
Good. Good afternoon, members of the committee and board. So I guess what we need to explain is, while the findings said that there were significant errors in all of those funds, there was actually only significant errors found in the revolving development fund. They just lumped it all into one response. And the errors that were found in the secondary fund were just a matter of some objects being charged to the wrong PCA and recorded wrong on the spreadsheet. But those have since been rectified because they were very small. The revolving development is a very old spreadsheet. It's been around for about 20 years or more. And has been handled by numerous different people. And so the fact that there's some formula errors in there is not surprising. We do need to go through and fix those and review the accounts, the sub-accounts, and the projects that are used in that spreadsheet, make sure that those are still ongoing projects, that the funds should still be committed to them, or if they should be uncommitted. And at this point in time, even though their concern was that the board would overcommit themselves to projects out of the revolving development fund, at this point, it looks as though it's going to be, once we're all done, because Cynthia and I reviewed a few things yesterday and found another $500,000 that needs to be taken off. So we'll be down to just over 1.5 million potentially overcommitted at this, as of today, but it could potentially be less. There's also an outstanding deposits that need to go into that fund of about $600,000 just from the interest that has been earned on that fund since August that has not been deposited, just because of the lack of confidence in the balances in the new accounting system that the state's using. So I think we will come out fine in the end. It's a good exercise for all of us to go through to determine and get everybody on the same page. That's all I have, unless there's questions.
And I might just follow up with Sasha and then open it to questions, just to let you know that what our next steps look like. So as I mentioned, we're currently working on a process where we're developing an agency response to the audit finding, and we will make that available to you all by next Friday at the board's meeting. As Sasha mentioned, we're in the process of reconciling the revolving development fund and secondary fund, and so we'll be prepared to report on that effort and provide a report of the financial status for all of the funds at the board meeting next Friday. And then finally, the finding in the corrective action plan will be provided to LSO in the near future and will be presented to JFAC at the upcoming meetings in January.
All right, is there any questions for Cynthia or Sasha on this issue?
Madam Chairman, this is Jeff. Do we have a high level of confidence in the numbers the state has that we are trying to true up to match? Their system is dead on accurate. Do we feel good about their numbers, or is just their numbers are the numbers?
I think Sasha's trying to figure out how to answer that question.
Well, I just think that we have to we got to true things up, but I just want to make sure we're truing up against numbers that we have a high degree of confidence in, and not just a set of numbers that are out there that, based on some of the things I understand about what's happened with the state's financial practices in the last year or so. There may be an error too here and there in their numbers.
Thank you for that comment. Yes, I have actually requested a meeting with some of the people that work at the controller's office that are the ones that are providing the reports that we're using to validate the information. Just because some of the information that I've been able to extract from the accounting system, I cannot come up with the same numbers that they're coming up with on their cash balances. They're not significant differences. They're less than $30,000 total for the revolving development fund. So, and the numbers that I'm coming up with are that much less than what the state's saying. So I don't fear an overcommitment based on that, just because it is less. But they haven't been able to tell me where they're getting all those numbers from. We're supposed to be meeting with multiple people from the controller's office sometime the end of January, first part of February, to go over some of the intricacies and errors that we're finding with this new system.
Well, I applaud your efforts to get this worked out, and I appreciate that over the course of time. I believe there are multiple project managers who provide information or inputs into the spreadsheet. And I think there's a lot of moving parts there, and probably a good idea to get it as accurate as we can get it, but probably nothing we need to be overly concerned about at this time. But I guess would be my take.
I agree.
I have one question though. Once you get the numbers trued up and it matches the state's accounting system, would there be the ability to generate our board report from the state system? Or does it have to be done manually in an Excel spreadsheet?
So that's one of the things that was that made this new system very appealing. Yeah, that's the word. Appealing to people that were looking at the new system was that we'd be able to pull reports directly from the software and not have to have separate tracking sheets. However, reporting was one of the last things that they looked at creating in that system to make it function correctly. I guess I would say the short answer is yes, that's the hope. I don't know when that would be feasible to be able to do that, but that's the hope.
Okay. All right. Well, we know the goal. All right. Well, thank you for sticking with it, Sasha. I think we'll only get better as we learn the system.
I hope so.
Any other questions? All right. So I guess we're ready to move on to the next agenda item.
Next agenda item is other items that committee members or other board members may have.
Anyone have any other items they would like to bring up before the finance committee meeting?
Madam Chair, I'm good. I just, if Sasha finds an extra couple of million that's unaccounted for, I want to buy a waterboard airplane.
I think it's going to be more than a couple million. What's our level of materiality?
No, we'll get this all straightened out, and it's probably good that we get on top of this. But I think we have the ability to keep ourselves balanced, and then with better tracking in the future, we'll be fine. But as these new programs get launched, I just want to make sure that there aren't any glitches on the state side of the bean counting that we align with, that then we find out 6 months or a year or 2 years from now, we're still out of whack. So that it would be important to make sure that the state can demonstrate a level of confidence to us that they have the correct numbers.
All right. Any other items? Hearing none, I would I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you for a
All
long,
right.
arduous meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll see you all next week.
Yes.
Thank you.